The PlayStation Portable released to North America in 2005, competing directly against the Nintendo DS, and while both systems had advanced hardware, it was clear the PSP came out ahead when it came to graphical capabilities. At the time, the PSP's advanced technology meant it was able to play games that other handhelds could only dream of, so in this video we're going to take a look at some of the best PSP games on the system and showcase some that you probably haven't heard of. And so in first we've got Deadhead Fred. This is an action-adventure title where you play as Fred, who is a decapitated man trying to find clues to solve his own murder. The main gimmick of the game is that Fred doesn't have any traditional weapons, but rather uses powers he's absorbed from severed heads. The gameplay all takes place from a third-person perspective, and it involves a fair amount of combat as well as puzzles and platforming. Along with this, the game also does a really good job at pulling off the 1940s noir style, and the storyline is quite funny, with enough content to keep newcomers coming back, so if you like titles that are very different from the norm and you want something that will keep you engaged, be sure to check out Deadhead Fred. And so in next is Prinny, Can I Really Be the Hero? This is a tough platformer that has you playing as a Prinny from a 1,000 member squad who's been given 10 hours to track down dessert ingredients. The story is non-linear and the gameplay features a lot of cool elements such as the in-game time affecting how stages play along with the bosses within them. In terms of the controls, the Prinnys that you play as are capable of hit pounding down and even double jumping to reach higher areas. The game also utilizes a dash mechanic where you're able to make your Prinny invincible by spinning, but you run the risk of making them dizzy if you use it too much. Along with that, there is also the option of suiciding your Prinnys where players are able to sacrifice lives and perform an attack that hits everything on the screen. When it comes to Prinny games in general, there is always a lot of content packed into them as well as unlockables for those players who want to go above and beyond. Overall, Prinny Can I Really Be the Hero is a great title on the PSP, and it's an easy recommendation for those who enjoy challenging platformers. And so next up is Snoopy and the Red Baron. I'm sure many at first glance would write this one off as a crappy license title, as the cover art sort of makes you think it's going to be a cash grab, yet luckily that really couldn't be farther from the truth, as the game pulls a lot of great ideas from other popular titles. To me personally, the gameplay feels like a mix of Diddy Kong Racing and Crimson Skies, pulling a lot of great elements from past arcade flying games. When it comes to the story, it's surprisingly decent, staying true to the World War I theme and its use of satire. On the other hand, the gameplay features a good variety of things to do, with the game switching between different objectives, helping keep the levels fresh. For me personally, one of my favorite parts about the entire game is just how the aircraft handles. You're given a lot of control over the airplane, and when you crash it, it never feels like it's anyone else's fault but yours. So basically, if you like flying games or you want a good licensed title to try out portably, Snoopy and the Red Baron is an excellent choice. And so the next game is the Power Stone Collection. Now I tend to avoid putting games from prior systems on my list as I like to keep things fresh, but when it comes to Power Stone, it's definitely a series worth making an exception for. Originally released on the Dreamcast, both Power Stone 1 and 2 are 3D fighting games that take place in an arena. The game takes the concept of fighting to a whole new level by allowing players to pick up items and interact with them while changing the environments. One of the key concepts of the game is that players can pick up 3 Power Stones, which when collected together transform the player's fighter into a more powerful version of themselves. It's a cliche concept, but it's executed really well and it doesn't really ever get old. In general, when it comes to the PSP Power Stone Collection, it does a good job at taking both games and presenting them with nice visuals and controls on the PSP handheld. All in all, both games hold up and they offer a way to play a series that many missed out on due to it being stuck on the Dreamcast, so if you've never played this series before or you enjoy 3D fighters, the Power Stone Collection on the PSP is a good one to recommend. And so in next we've got Megaman Powered Up. This is a remake of the original NES Mega Man that at first glance I was very skeptical of. I was never a huge fan of the really cutesy art style, and I've always been a sucker for pixelated graphics, yet this game actually managed to sway my opinion. For starters, the graphics are actually what the developers originally intended Mega Man to look like, and after an hour with them, they do end up growing on you. Another thing is that the gameplay is relatively identical to the original, and it stays true to the Mega Man playstyle that many have come to love. They even let you choose between the old style of gameplay or the new style, which features cutscenes and even some voice acting. The entire game has a ton of new content added as well, such as new bosses and the ability to play as a bunch of different characters. All things considered, this game is a really good entry into the Mega Man series, and it's an excellent title on the PSP, so if you've never played the original Mega Man before and you want to give it a try, this is a good way to do it. And so coming in next is Flatout Head-On. Originally released as Flatout Ultimate Carnage, this Xbox 360 and PC title was ported to the PSP, where it was rebranded as Flatout Head-On. The game is an arcade racer with a ton of destruction and crazy physics. While other games might just have a few collisions here or there, Flatout Head-On fully embraces its destructional elements by encouraging players to try and take each other out as much as possible. But it's not just racing, as this game also has a ton of other modes, such as Demolition Derby and small mini-games. In terms of the graphics, this is one of the best looking PSP games I've ever played, and it's impressive that the developers even managed to squeeze this port onto the device. Yet what's even more impressive is the fact that this game offers full-on multiplayer capability as well as local multiplayer, where each person gets to take turns trying to complete preset challenges. Overall, Flatout Head-On is a really solid racing game that looks and feels great on the PSP, so if you've never experienced a game from the Flatout series before, I'd say this is a good way to start. And so next is Obscure Aftermath. Originally this game received lukewarm praise, with many reviewers stating the game was very average, yet I personally felt otherwise, as while the story might be a little corny, it's still a really fun experience all around. When it comes to the graphics, this game is another title that looks visually impressive, holding up even to today's standards. In terms of general gameplay, it's fairly basic, with you taking on a third-person perspective and being able to defend yourself using various weapons. Now what makes this game truly special, at least to me, is its ability to incorporate co-op. Unlike many horror games, this one lets you do two-player co-op, and it does an excellent job at making it a challenge, all while never feeling unfair. Obscure Aftermath is a fun little horror game on the PSP, and I think it's one that many skipped over, so if you've never played this one through, consider giving it a go. And so up next is Gungnir. Many relate this title to games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre due to its similar isometric design and gameplay. Gungnir is a tactical role-playing game that splits itself up into various events and battles, while also giving players breaks in between to purchase new equipment. When it comes to the story, there is a lot of content to play through, and the developers have implemented a ton of special features that make each battle different from the next. Now one thing I enjoyed most about Gungnir is its difficulty system. While other tactical RPGs tend to orient themselves for only the most hardcore players, Gungnir on the other hand offers an optional support mode for newer players that helps lessen tough game mechanics and difficulty. Another thing that is great about Gungnir is when it comes to its visual style, as the game features hand-drawn sprites that look really good on the PSP's smaller display. So while some might not be the biggest fan of tactical RPGs, Gungnir's quality story and different difficulty modes keep it different from the rest, and it makes it a good contender for both new and old players alike, making it an easy recommendation for those who might be interested. And so the final game is What Did I Do to Deserve This, My Lord? This has always been one of my favorite PSP titles to play because of how different it is. The game is an RTS god simulator where you're tasked with creating and upgrading dungeons to protect your demon lord. Throughout the game, heroes are going to come into your dungeon and they will attempt to take the demon lord away, with your only goal being to stop that from happening. To do this, you are tasked with breaking blocks to create monsters and designing your dungeon's layout. Something that is really cool about this game is definitely its block mechanic system and how it intertwines with creating monsters. Essentially, slime monsters are created from blocks, but can expel their nutrients onto nearby blocks, releasing more powerful monsters when the block is broken. It's a weird concept when you say it out loud, but in the game it's executed really well and it is a lot of fun, so if you've never given a god simulator a try and you want a noteworthy title to take on the go, What Did I Do to Deserve This, My Lord is an excellent choice. And well, that wraps up my video. The PSP has always been one of my favorite handhelds, and it played a huge part in my childhood. To this day, it is still one of the more affordable consoles to buy games physically for, and I'm always surprised that not more people are into this system. But anyways, I'm sure I missed a bunch of really good PSP games on this list, so if you have any recommendations for ones that are lesser known, I'd love to hear them down in the comments below. I also wanted to say thank you so much for watching my video all the way until the end, and to ask that you please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And well, with all that said, I will see you very soon. Take care.